What's up, friends of YouTube? Derek Van Diest here with Zaandam Music. Welcome to the first episode of How I Made This Beat. In this episode, I'm going to be going over what instruments I used, the arrangement, the mix process, and the automation. Let's get right into it. Alright, here is the beat that I created. So we're going to begin by listening through one time to hear what it sounds like. Alright, and that's the beat that we're going to be taking a closer look at. So next up, I'm going to show you exactly what instruments I used. So starting from the top, in purple here, I used an 808. And I'll bring it up here for you guys. I used 808 Warfare, which is a contact instrument. and I used it on Clean 808. Alright, the next instrument I used was a kick, and this was a file that I have from my library, and I put it into a sample 1. And I also have a snare, which I did the same process, a file that I put into sample 1. I also have a clap using the same process. Hi-hat. I also have an open hat. And next I have an instance of Analog Lab, and I have a preset I believe I'm using here. House in the Forest and Now Boarding together to create the atmosphere. Alright, then I have a pad sound, which is just a file that I have from my collection. And this pad sound is actually it's the atmosphere, so I'll show you the atmosphere pattern. So the last one that we took a look at is the atmosphere, which is this pattern that I programmed here. What I did was I bounced it to audio, and then I reversed it, and that's how I got this pad sound here. And I'll show you guys what it sounds like later on. So up next we have the guitar, and I used an instance of Omnisphere, and I'm using Dancing Cedar's Pluck under the Synth Pluck category. And I have an Asian pluck sound, which I got from VSP Avenger. Did I say that correctly? Yeah, VSP Avenger. And it's a Beautiful Stripes pluck. Alright, next we have the bell. And the bell sound is from Omnisphere. It's the Resonant Glockenspiel from the Bells and Vibes category. Alright, and up next I have a lot of effects. I have a subtle effect here for like an atmosphere, and we'll take a look at what it sounds like later. I have another one for the intro, two sounds that you'll hear later on. I have a sweep effect for the riser, because I like to add a riser just before each section that changes up. I'll show you that later on. I have a star effect, which is also a wave file, a star laser effect. And I also have a bubble effect. So up next I have my beat tag, which is one time in the beginning of the song. And I also have an automation down here for a filter, and I'll show you that later. Alright, so that's all the instruments I used. So let's go over the arrangement. Alright, so we have the intro here. And let me just exit out of this. So in the intro, we only have the pad, the pluck, and some of the sound effects playing. So I'm going to show you what the intro sounds like. Alright. So I'm just gonna show you individually each sound that I used. So this is the reverse pad that I was talking about. It's basically the same sound as this one up here. I'm just gonna move it for demonstration. See how this one is rising slowly? So while that one rises, I decided to reverse it. And this is the reverse sound one more time. So as you can see, now it's dropping instead of rising. Alright, so I put just the drop here for the intro so that it's just dropping. And I added a lead sound here, which is like a little pluck that I have, and I'll solo that for you guys. Alright, and I also have these sound effects as well. This is like a subtle kind of atmospheric sound. And I added this just to add some movement to the intro. Well, basically the whole beat actually uses it. As you can see, the whole beat has that effect. But it's so subtle that you hardly notice it. The other effect I have is just for the intro, and this is what it sounds like. It's that simple, it's just that little beep sound. And I only have that playing in the intro and at the very end. So 2 of them in the intro and 2 at the end. Just little subtle sound effects. Alright, and I have the sweep here, a sweep effect to transition to the next section. I'll show you what that sounds like. Whoops, that's not right. So yeah, that's the sweep, and I have that playing throughout the beat. Alright, so that's the intro, and as you saw the beat tag as well. Play it here real quick.
Zaandam music.
Okay, so that's the intro, just those pieces right there. Now the next part drops right into it with the 808 kick, snare, and clap, and the open hats all being introduced at the same time, as well as the rising atmosphere kind of pad effect that I have here, the one that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, I add those elements all in one shot here, just to like really start up the beat. So let's play it through.
Zaandam music.
And the kick pattern also matches the 808 pretty closely. So as you can see, it's gonna keep playing, but after these 8 bars, it's gonna switch up to the next section. And this section is gonna introduce the guitar. Let me go over the sound effects here as well. So as you can hear, there's the guitar. And here comes the star laser sound effects coming up right now. Into the sweep. Alright, so that star laser is very subtle, you can barely hear it. We're gonna play it one more time here. It's coming up in this section. So you can barely hear it. And now we have a bubble effect here that I added just to switch it up. I really don't know what that sounds like, but it sounds kind of like some sort of bubble to me. Let's play it one more time. I'll solo it. It's some weird like alien sound. I'll show you what the star laser sounds like soloed. I don't know what that sounds like either, I just call it a star laser. Just some weird sound effects to add character to the beat. So I have those playing throughout. I'm going to show you here. As you can see on the screen, it plays in several different sections. I have it calculated to play in just the right spots. So it plays all the way up until the end here. It just stops here at the end. Alright, so those are all the sound effects that I used, as well as the sweeps. In green here is the sweep. So every transition will have a sweep. Alright, so after the guitar plays here in this section, we have 8 bars of that guitar section. Then we go into the bells. So I'm going to play from the guitar, and we're going to go into the bell sound here. Also, I introduced the hi-hats right here. Closed hat. Yeah, so the hi-hats are right here, and it's kind of like in between the 2 sections. And it's basically playing throughout with the guitar. So let's play through this. And And here comes a filter automation that I included. I'll talk about that later at the end. Here's the bell sound. Okay, so after that 8 bars of bells, we go right back to the guitar for another 8 bars with the guitar. And as I'm going through the arrangement, you can see I have the claps taken off here. I took off the hi-hats here just to add some variance to the arrangement. Now we go back to the original lead sound, the pluck, as well as the guitar playing at the same time. Alright, and then we go back to the bells. So we do that for another 8 bars, and then we'll go back to the guitar sound for another 8 bars, and then we'll go right back to the pluck for another 8 bars. Also, note that the guitar and pluck are playing at the same time here, yet at the very beginning, the guitar is not playing. So it adds extra energy. See, we have the pluck at the beginning by itself, then we have the guitar by itself, then it builds up so they both play at the same time here. And it's calculated that way so that the high points of the beat, where the most energy is in this section here, where all the instruments are playing, or at least a majority of them are. That's why I took the sound effects off in these sections. I took the sound effects off because it would have been too much. This green one is the sweep, so the sweep is okay for the next section. So the bells are playing again for another 8 bars, and we sweep into the Asian pluck for the end here. I also dropped a pad sound here to lower the energy, and I'm slowly starting to lower the energy as the beat ends. And then it's going to end here. As you can hear, the delay continues as well as the reverb, and adds a nice little ending effect. Alright, so now let's just go over the mix. Let's see what I did here in the mix. Let's start with the 808. So I'll show you exactly what I did to the 808. Okay, so here on the left you can see the mix channel. I added a compressor, a Pro EQ, and a decapitator. So the compressor, I'll bring it up here, is the standard Studio One compressor, and I have it side chained to my kick. And I adjusted the side chain knob, the attack and release to and I'll go over that a little bit more in a second. The next thing I added was a Pro EQ. I chose to show you guys an EQ using the standard Studio One EQ, which is pretty much the same as the Fab Filter, but I like the Fab Filter more because you can do a lot more than you can with this one, but it's really the same thing. I did a low cut, I rose it up a little bit in the middle, and a high cut on this side. Alright, and then third, I added a decapitator, and I just rose the drive a little bit. That's all I did, just to add a little more distortion at the high end. So let's hear what the 808 sounds like by itself. So you can hear a little bit of the distortion on the high end. Alright, now I'm going to add the kick to it. Okay, so I'm going to go over what the kick is doing here. Alright, let's do this because I muted the MIDI file. Let's go back to the MIDI file. So I'm going to hit Shift M to unmute that MIDI file. And I'm just going to mute the audio file so they don't both play at the same time. And I'm going to do the same thing with the kick, so that you can see what it's doing before I bounced it. Okay, so here on the 808 channel, you can see a little yellow line going down. That's where the sidechain is happening. So I'm going to go back to the 808 here so you can see the decapitator. there's the distortion that's being added right here. Okay, let's see here. I have the 808 routed to my bass bus channel. And alright, that's the 808. So let's go to the kick now. And all I have on the kick is a Pro EQ. So I used another instance of Studio One's Pro EQ here. I did a low cut, high cut. I rose it up in certain sections here. And one thing I like about the stock, like the stock EQ that they have, is that you can see a mini version of it here. So you don't have to click into it. So it's pretty unique because none of the other ones can do that. So anyways, all I have is that EQ on the kick, and I'm just gonna mute this so I don't forget what I did here. Okay, so let's move on to the snare now. For the snare, I used a Fab filter, so I'm gonna be using the Fab filter from now on. I did a low cut, a little bit in the high middle section here, and I did a notch right on a certain key here for a frequency that I didn't want. Alright, and then I also added a Fab filter MB, so a multi-band compressor here, and I put the cut through preset, and I adjusted this band and this band according to the sound of the snare. Alright. And I routed the kick and snare to the to the drum bus channel. So kick and snare are in the drum bus channel. Alright, let's go to the clap, which is also in the drum bus channel. And all I have on the clap is a Fab Filter Pro Q2 with a low cut and a little bit of a raise here. Alright, and up next we have the hi-hat, which is also on the drum bus channel. And I did a Fab Filter Pro Q2 with a similar... I rose it up quite a bit here because I wanted more of the high end of that hi-hat. And I also did a low cut. Alright, up next we have the open hat, which is also on the drum bus channel. And on that one I also have a Fab Filter with a low cut and a high shelf. Or it's a bell. It's actually a bell curve. Okay, and alright, now we have those were all the drums. Now we have the atmosphere sound, which is routed to my pads bus channel. And for this one I have a Fab Filter with a simple low cut. It's a very steep low cut. And I also have a Sound Toys crystallizer to add a nice little crystal effect at the high end. And I'm using the Master Crystallizer preset for that. Alright, that's the atmosphere. Up next we have the pad sound. This is the one that I reversed. So I have a Fab Filter and I rose certain frequencies here on the key that I wanted to raise, which is D. Alright, and I have that routed to the pads bus channel. Alright, up next we have the guitar. And for this one I have a Fab Filter Pro Q. And this is a crazy... okay, this is pretty crazy. I just used my ears to figure out what sections need to be taken out and which parts need to be raised. But the reason that I made these drastic dips here, these notches, is because this guitar sound is going to be playing at the same time as the Asian pluck sound. So I had to remove some frequencies so that the Asian pluck can stand out in this area. So that's why I did that. Alright, and I also added a multi-band compressor from Fab Filter. And I used the rhythm guitar clarity setting and I adjusted it I just adjusted it slightly to match the sound. Okay, and that's routed to my leads bus channel. Up next we have the Asian pluck, and I put quite a bit on this one. I have a Fab Filter Pro Q with a low cut. I have a pan man, and this is going to be panning it like this to give it some more stereo width. Let's see here. I have an Ozone 8 imager with the mid-range presence to add some more stereo width to the mid-range. And at the end here, I have a glitch 2 effect here, and it has a re-trigger in certain sections. So I'm gonna play what that sounds like so you can hear it. So I'm gonna solo the MIDI, I'm gonna unmute it, Shift M, and then I'm gonna play what that sounds like. So as you can hear, the re-trigger happens in those sections. I also turned down the mix knob so that it's not so obvious. And I'll just show you what the imager looks like. As you can see here, that's the stereo being widened in the mid-range. And here's what the pan man looks like. It's going pretty fast to give it that extra stereo. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's look at the next part. So that's it for the Asian pluck, and that's in the lead bus channel. And we have a bell sound up next, which is also on the leads bus channel. And for this one, I started with a FabFilter multiband compression. I lowered the highs, I rose the lows a little bit here, mid lows. Alright, I put a FabFilter Q with a low cut. And I also used a FabFilter Timeless 2, which is a delay. And I used the Acid O preset. So I'll show you what the bell sounds like real quick. So you can hear the delay there pretty easily. Okay, so up next we have... Oh, that's also on the leads bus channel. Okay, so up next we have a subtle effects sound. And for this one I didn't put anything on it. All I put was a pan man from my effects channel, which I'll get into later, so it's using that pan man. And it's on my pads bus channel. Next up I have the intro effects, and for this one I don't have anything on it. This is the Hornet song key to see what key it's in. I don't really need that. So there's nothing on that effect. And that's routed to my FX bus channel. Up next we have the sweep effects, and nothing is on this one either. This is routed to my FX channel. We also have a star laser sound effect. This one has only the pan man, and I'll show you the pan man later. That's on the FX bus channel. And we have another effect, which is the bubble. And all I have on this one is an Ozonate imager. Let's pull it up here real quick. It doesn't want to come up. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it has the Enhance Space preset. That's for the bubble effect. So next we have the beat tag. And obviously I'm going to remove the beat tag once I go into the mastering process. I only have it in there for the purpose of this video. And this is routed to my lead sound. All I have on this is an auto-tune. And I have an auto-tune with C minor scale. This is the retune speed I'm using, and at 90% humanize. And I'm doing this so that the beat tag stays within the key of the beat. That's all I have on there. And that's routed to my leads bus channel. Alright, so those are all the instruments. Now let's get into the effects. I'm using a plate reverb for the drums. This is the preset that I'm using for Valhalla Vintage Verb. And I'm also using a hall reverb, which is the Valhalla Vintage Verb with the very nice hall setting. I'm also using a room reverb. And this one, let me pop it up here, is Altiverb 7 with the SARM West Studio preset. Alright, next effect is my pan man that I showed you on some of my other channels. It's panning very quickly here, left to right, to give it some more stereo width. Then we also have, oh, I'm not using this at all actually, this echo. It's not in use for this project. So here are the channels that I have, the bus channels. We have the bass bus channel. And on this one, all I have is an Ozonate imager. And I'm using this to remove the stereo imaging so that it's completely in mono. and I have this. I have a room reverb. I have that altiverb routed to that bass bus channel. All right. Up next, we have the drum bus channel. For this one, I have a multi-band compressor, and I adjusted this so that the kick stands out, the hi-hat stand out, the middle, the snare, this part of the snare stands out, and the low end of the snare stands out. I added a plate reverb and the room reverb as well to that channel. For the pads bus channel, I added a room reverb and a hall reverb as well. For the reverb, and that's it. For the guitar, wait a second, do I have my guitar routed there? Oh, I guess I didn't use it. I ended up using the leads instead, so this is not in use, the guitar channel. I didn't use it. So last we have the FX, and for that one I have quite a bit of room reverb on the sound effects. Alright, I have nothing on my filter channel. I did not use it for this project, and I did not use my filter bypass either. For the mix bus channel, I have an auto filter, and I'll show you here. These are the settings that I used for my auto filter, and I'll show you what I did with that at the very end. Alright, there's nothing on my master, just some of my visualizers. I use, I'll show you what visualizers I use. So I use this one, Nugent Audio Visualizer, and I use these settings so that I can check the stereo imaging, everything here from the Spectrum, 2 different versions of the Spectrum here. And this is also a meter for the sound. I also use a song key to see what key of the beat is in, which is C minor. And I also have an instance of T-Rack CS metering, and I use this for the perceived loudness and for the peak, so I can make sure that the sound is hitting right below the -5, so that it could be mastered, so that I have 6 dB of headroom for the mastering process. So this beat has not been mastered yet. Alright. Now, that's everything I used in the mixer, so let's get on to the automation. Now, the only thing I automated on this project is the mix bus, the auto filter that I showed you. So I'm going to open that up real quick here. Alright, so here's that auto filter that I used. And I'm going to go to that section of the song. So, right here at the very bottom, you'll see the mix bus channel, and I have the automation for the mix knob. So I have it completely off all the way up till this point here, in which I bring it up to 100%. So that's why there's such a steep line here going straight up. So at 100%, the filter is going to start going up this line right here, start working its way up. So all the way from a low cut, raising up to a high cut. And it ends at the end of this 8-bar loop here, and goes right back to normal. So let's hear what that sounds like. Whoops, let me go back to that. This is what it sounds like. Alright, here it comes. So as you saw there, it went all the way from a low cut and slowly opened up until it was completely back open at the end. So back to normal. And I did that automation in that section and another section here. Something a little different. I did something different here. Instead of a drastic curve, I did just slightly less. I think that was a mistake, so I'm going to bring it back. There we go. So that was an error on my part. And that's it. That's all I did for the automation. Alright, and that's been the beat project today, so I hope you guys learned something today, and thank you for joining me on the first episode of How I Made This Beat, and I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.